lav mic. I'm going to have you say a few things.
Sure.
Go ahead and say a few words, whatever words they may be.
Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, go ahead and what's your name and what's your call tag?
Okay, my name is David. I'm from Australia, 27. Smash tag is Caotic, Peach main, original generation founder of the San Diego Melee crew, and quite proud of it. Yeah, that was my heyday was 2006.
Does that sound cool?
The peak of the MLG days was I was in the Smash at a very good time, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so don't bother looking at the camera.
Yeah.
You can just look at me. Try not to swivel in the chair very much, but you can just find whatever position you like, and that'll be perfect.
Just tilt my head.
Perfect. At occasion, I might stop the camera or whatever, just because it's on battery and it might run out or the tape might roll out. So
That's okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. So when did you start playing Smash Brothers?
I started actually competitively probably in 2004. Nintendo itself, the company, they ran a series of video game tournaments inside movie house theaters, and that's how I met some really good random Peach and Link players, and they hooked me up with the Smashboards.com and the community itself. So that was a long time ago, and that consisted of a crew core of 4 people, and one of them was Emily, one of them was Shaz. They still play to this day, but more or less informally. And they dropped lines like, do you know how to tech, or do you know how to L cancel? I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? I roll and smash. Okay, I got a long way to go, but I really want to see what this is all about. So I went to a very local Melbourne meet, and the scene was very small back in the time. It was just literally a dozen people. And yeah, I got absorbed by what they were doing. I just sort of like started learning about what was on Smash Bros. And all the new ATs coming out at the time. So I think I just, forgot about high school at the time. I just started playing a lot of Smash with these guys, and I think that's where it all started. Yeah, just a very, very typical sort of scenario of just looking for more players and finding them in the right outlets, the right social outlets, like a public place where they'll play Smash Brothers, and you're like, oh, what is this? They're doing so much interesting stuff. Like, how do you do that? Is that legal? Is that real? Yeah, so that's how it all started. Yeah, I guess it's a pretty vanilla experience of introduction to Smash.
Yeah. Let me see here. I'm just trying to figure out your position here. Can you try to swivel? There you go.
All right.
Keep that swivel. There you go. That's perfect.
The blue steel.
There you go. That 3/4 turn.
Yeah, this angle is actually my most photogenic angle.
Yep. That's good.
I hope it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep that angle, and you're all set.
All right.
So when you started playing, did you have any kind of concept of what the game really was, or you were just probably playing it for fun, right?
We were playing for fun, but I think when we started, we were playing tournaments, and they were like discussing rule sets, and they were discussing like what stage legality is, and interesting sort of Dave's stupid rule. I'm like, what is this? It's very they're taking this very seriously. I think for me, that's when I started to get a lot more real and deep, and I didn't really understand at the time what I was getting myself into. I had no idea playing with a bunch of I guess strangers at the time that became my best friends, that I will be doing the same thing 12 years from now. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's I had no idea that so many things about humble beginnings from Smash with a small crew of people could lead to such a life-transforming experience where I ended up having my largest network of friends would be Smash players from all over the world. And with the work I do now, I can go on a vacation or go on business trips to any part of America or any part of Europe or any part of Asia and know someone who will just come and take me around and be my host and be my best buddy for that time and day, because we had that common ground. And we can talk about interesting matchups, or talking about interesting players, talk about interesting life experiences. And the Melee brought that common ground, brought that social liquor to the table for me in particular. And no, I had no idea. For me at the time in 2004 when I started, Smash was just about playing a really fun game with some really interesting players who knew what they were doing, and it was about getting better. Yeah, but for me, I didn't see it at the time, but yeah, I'm really proud of the fact that I kept through with it when a lot of people just said you should stop playing so much in high school and focus on your screwy grades, or maybe go out to the gym or something, or do some track and field, or play a sport because you're so lanky or you're so antisocial. But no, I said you're totally wrong. You misunderstood what the Smash scene is all about for me. What I get out of it is something you get out of somewhere else. But for me, this is how it works for me. And yeah, I'm quite proud. I'm quite happy with and satisfied with what the scene's done for me and my personal development and my professional development as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to JB3 at Apex and about those early days, like when there was like no tournaments around and
Yeah.
Did you go on stuff like GameFAQs or did you know about Smashboards in the beginning?
Yeah, my introduction to the crew was through Smashboards. They gave like at the public tournaments they would give out sort of like shout outs to go to Smashboards and go there to find meets, and the meets are very small and they were very infrequent. So that's how I found out. But I think Melbourne at the time was the only Smash community in Australia at the time, and so it was up to us to be the scene leaders and to rally other people from other cities to come and join us from, say, Sydney or Perth. And I think the first biggest Australian tournament at the time would have been in 2005 with a turnout of about 28 people or 30 people, which was huge at the time for us. And that was the first time I became a TO for the Australian scene. So that's where I started to get really serious about pulling people over. And I think the Melbourne players sponsored Captain Jack to that tournament. So yeah, we were known as the money scene. We still do it to this day. I mean, despite our discrepancy in skill with America or Europe, we somehow managed to pull over Captain Jack, Ken, Mango, Mewtwo King. They've all been hosts for our tournaments in Australia because I think we know we're small and we're isolated, and we really care about the scene and the metagame as it is. Even back in 2004, so we'd sponsor them over down. We put in like 100 each or something like that into a plane ticket, and we'd host them and we'd show them around. And then Captain Jack would turn up to a tournament in Melbourne, beat everyone's asses with any character he wants, maybe Ness even, I don't know. And we'll basically, the next day he'd like, be hugging kangaroos and, go eat a meat pie or something like that. And that's how it was for us. Yeah, and I think that's something we still like to do to this day. It's like a Australian Smash culture. Like every year we ask ourselves, who do we want to invite to our country to be, to see what we're all about and learn from them. Would it be Armada this year? Would it be Mango again or something like that? Yeah.
Now, Captain Jack, he does seem to be like the standard bearer. Like everyone that I've like kind of go through these interviews and stuff, like Katie J looked up to him, Chillin looked up to him. Everybody kind of keyed in on Captain Jack. What was it about Captain Jack and maybe the Japanese in general? That kind of captured everyone's imagination.
Back in the day, we didn't use YouTube to learn Smash techniques. We used the DC++ hub, so we actually had to download videos in full before we could see what players were like, and we would just have like a chat log. At the time, the players in different countries in emerging scenes like America and Japan didn't actually verse much at all or integrate in any way, so we didn't have a clear indication of which country was better. But from watching the videos, the Japanese were far more, impressive in their technical and creativity, technical aspects in their creativity. So I think there was probably a realization that Japan players were probably at the forefront of the metagame at the time, and Captain Jack was the person who was promoting the Japanese scene. So he was the go-to guy for, do we want to bring this guy over to Australia? Do we want him to verse cool players and see where he's at? And or even for America, in OC2, do we bring him over to a US tournament to benchmark ourselves against a player like Bomb Soldier or Captain Jack or K, or for instance like that? So before we knew where America really stood, it was just assumed Japan was better. So that's because of the videos, and the videos were just versing other Japanese players, and the Americans were just playing American players, so they're isolated, like I said earlier. So there was no way of telling who was better. But just because of their styles, we just knew that Japan was probably the more advanced scene at the time.
Yeah.
But we had to wait until they could actually meet so we can test that theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there when exactly, because during all this time you were in Australia, right? I mean, this was early on. When did you meet Ken? When did you move to the States and start that whole journey?
I met Ken, I think I did an exchange in San Diego, California, but my family happens to live right in the same neighborhood as Ken. I was really excited to study in America because, oh my god, Smash scene is going to be so amazing. I get to play all these people every weekend. Fuck my GPA, I don't care anymore. every weekend I'll be in a different state. Sure, I'll just blow my cash and just play different communities because I get to be out of Australia where I can only play 4 people. So it was pretty lucky that I had been to me in Canada and Manaclad's neighborhood. And they have bi-weeklies, and I think I made a pretty good impression on them when I first visited their house and their family. It might have to do with the fact that I was quite local, so he could always pull me over. I think because I spent my weekends in Orange County where he was based, he would always call me up at 3 a.m. saying like, "Hey, KO, you want to play Smash?" I'm like, "No, I'm tired. We can go to what's that restaurant? We can go to Alerto's, we can go to Taco Bell, we can, just something." And I'd be like, "Okay, fine, pick me up." And then I'll just go to his house, we'll play Smash, he'll force stuck me all the time, and then he'll be very satisfied to beat me. And then we'll fall asleep at 7 a.m. and then I'll just walk home afterwards. So I was always the person he could just sort of like invite over to his house and just, be the person around where he could just sort of like talk about matchups or talk about grudges or talk about just things that he didn't like or liked about the Smash scene that he could sort of like share with. And it wasn't always his brother that he did that to, he did it to me as well. And we clicked very well because of that. So that's how I got to meet Ken, just because I was studying in America at the time and he was training himself and he wanted his own crew. He wanted someone that could support him and be part of his alliance because he wasn't the most popular person in the Smash community at the time, despite his, his achievements at the time.
Now, at that time, was he, like when you had met Ken, was this after Game Over, or was this after?
Yeah, after the TG series. Yeah, after TG. This is during MLG's time. So Ken was very focused on being the most prominent, most visible player in the Smash circuit because this was at the time where MLG was starting to produce their TV series. And it was all about screen time, edit time, being that personable character, being the guy everyone liked because the screen time accounts for the most in, I guess, esports coverage in general. So he wanted to be the guy that would, not only always beat his opponents, but also be a guy that could relate to the TV screen. Yeah, so he was always interested about being able to express himself and think about different perspectives, which he got a lot from me at the time, I think. And also just tell me a lot more information than I would have expected from him, like inside information about different players because he was taking it very seriously. There was a lot of rivalries being set up in the region, even in the same cities. He didn't appreciate certain players because he thought that would be a threat to his reputation, for instance. Yeah, so he really started to forge relationships based on trust, and that was something I wasn't used to coming from Australia at the time, where everyone was sort of more group oriented and more collaborative. It doesn't matter if one was better than the other, it was all about the win-win just for the sake of the community survival. But in America, the scene was big enough, so it was all about, trying to be the best person, trying to like burn bridges or trying to create or even fabricate rivalries for the sake of it to make yourselves better. And that's what I thought Ken's sort of alliance or the Ken crew, for instance, sort of embodied a lot. The whole West Coast, East Coast scenario, the whole NorCal, SoCal scenario, they love that stuff because it demonstrates a commitment or a will to be tribal in a sense, to be like the best player, the sole survivor, for instance, which Ken really loves, and you can tell with the Survivor series he likes competing, so he needs to make a reason for himself to be the best, and I think that was the way he did it. I don't know what the reason was. I forgot the reason, but he banned people like DSF and Hugs from attending his tournaments because it kind of indirectly set up a rivalry or a segregated crew environment. So when they actually did meet, then they could really see who was the best without having to be friends. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the Hugs because I did talk to Hugs at length, and he didn't have very many good things to say about Ken. I feel like there was a little bit of bad blood there.
Yes, definitely bad blood. The bad blood seemed to be blown out of proportion in my perspective, and since I was already in an alliance with Ken, it was hard to be diplomatic about it. I think I was cut off from half of LA's scene because of my alliance with Ken, because I was like the neighborhood go-to guy and like the best friend for the time, and it was very hard for me to even talk to the people who lived in LA proper as opposed to OC or San Diego because of that. And I never understood why. And when I talked to ManaCloud about the opportunity of versing Hugs in a tournament where they met on neutral ground, like Long Beach, for instance, or in Champ Combo, the ManaCloud was always shit talking, saying like, "Yo, you gotta beat this guy. If you lose this guy, I'm gonna hate you so much. Like, you're not even gonna be the end of this, Kel. Like, if you beat him, you're gonna suck so much." I'm like, okay, he's putting a lot of pressure on me to beat this guy because it means a lot to them because I'm a part of their crew. So I think it was a lot of it was quite contrived, but it meant a lot to them. So for me, it didn't, because I want to. I'm a people person. I like to know everyone and understand everyone, but I felt like I was sucked into this sort of like dog-eat-dog mentality at the time, which was quite tough, and it didn't really represent who I truly was. But that's just what I learned from the experience, and it's interesting perspective. Yeah.
But I talked to Chudat as well when I was out in Arlington, which was nice. He got to tell me a little bit about his time being a West Coast kind of person when he was
the time he lived with Ken as well and was dating his sister. Yeah, I'm due to meet Chudat in a couple of days, so it's been a long time since we last met. 6 years, I think. At the time, we were really close because I think he was living with Ken's family as well as a part of an incentive to, I guess, get better and understand the game as well. I mean, he was part of the alliance. It was sort of like he was calling himself sort of like a adopted Californian at the time. But with Chudat, I think he was similar to me in that he was also a people person, but it was very difficult for him to sort of like pick sides and take sides, especially with the East Coast, West Coast scenario, which was, I think, very conflicting. At one time, he was contemplating abandoning the East Coast, and that stirred up a lot of bad blood. I remember that argument. Yes, so I'm not sure how that went. I forgot, but yeah, it's he was very close to our crew, and having the chance to like just be in that house and see him like stay with the family for a while, some of it was quite intense. The most intense things was just like they were treating each other like brothers, but to the point where they were just arguing with each other about just the game, to the point where I think Chudat was feeling so much pressure where he just sort of would just collapse and just not take anymore, just want to give up and just go back and fly back home to Virginia. Like he would confide in me and say a lot of like really personal stuff. I'm not even sure if I can really talk about it, but like he felt like he was being pushed to the end of the wall in the house because of things that probably affected Ken and Maniclad's performances in tournaments. Even things like how do I say this? Even things like colluding or just manipulating tournament brackets to achieve a victory. Like I think there was one instance where Ken got into deep trouble with MLG, and it was like a big warning about dropping sets in tournaments purposely so that your alliances could get through into a higher placing. And I think Ken did admit to me one time he did that for the sake of Chudat's survival in an MLG tournament, and when he got told off. And then Ken was like, Chudat, you gotta be really careful. You gotta pretend like you're dying properly and not just running off the stage because you want, not just pretend that Ken's running off the stage because he wants to win and put you at a high pedestal because you know that you can get a better bracket at the loser's end. So when people found out that Ken and Maniclad flipped it and said like, you damage your reputation, you're not part of the alliance anymore, and since Chudat moved out to California, he got really threatened and really felt really vulnerable. And he told me he was on the street just figuring out what to do with himself. He was like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I love Ken's sister, I love my girlfriend, and also I love like Ken and Maniclad, but they're pushing me so hard that I don't know what to do with myself anymore. And what should I do? Do I go home? Do I stay here? I don't feel comfortable anywhere because I don't have my East Coast connection anymore, and my West Coast connection is in tatters right now. So that was quite heavy for me at the time, and just being like that third person perspective just showed a lot about how much more seriously America took their Smash community and how they took the tournaments and their pride, their reputation. It was just a whole nother level, yeah. And I think it was extremely confronting and eye-opening at the time, but I'm glad I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to, as you said, you got to be part of that alliance, that inner circle. And,
yeah, I was peer pressured into being part of the alliance. I don't think I even had an option. I think that was because of Maniclad. He's like, Caotic, you're either in or you're out. It's the Huang's ways or it's the highway. You can be part of DSF's crew. I have no objection to that. But like, if you're part of the DSF's crew, you're not going to outbuy Weeklies. I'm sorry, because we banned him because he's just a bad influence in our community. That's what he thought. I'm like, okay. I can't really say anything. I don't really understand what they had between each other, but that's just part of the whole fabrication of the rivalries, in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of stepped into it right during the heyday too, what they called the golden days of MLG.
Ah, yes. Look back and go,
yeah. Walking into that, like, what did you think, like Wife did, that you were on the cusp of something, or because he said that in MLG Anaheim it was like PC versus Ken, and it was that after PC had were you at the opener where Ken had was defeated by PC?
No, that was in New York, the very
right.
first one. No, I went to the I think the second one was in Anaheim, I went to Anaheim and Orlando, and also the very final in Vegas, the big final in Vegas, top 8 invitational.
Cool. So you can give me a little perspective there. What happened? What was Anaheim like? Because his wife was there as well, and
Yes.
he was like, just the whole atmosphere. He said it was just amazing.
The atmosphere was electric. There is an emoji video, I think recorded by Bach or someone else, that was when Ken won on the very fifth and final championship set. The crowd erupted and just lifted him, threw Ken into the air. And I think there was footage of me and the Ken Alliance pretty much, and his sisters, just throwing him in the air and cheering him on in the most spectacular fashion ever captured on camera. And it was just too electric. We just couldn't wait to just jump up, and it wasn't, we couldn't hold back. It was impossible for us to be sitting on our stage seats. It was amazing. And it was obviously a West Coast dominated crowd, so the East Coast would have been quite alienated by that. But no, I think we really felt like a sense of location, a sense of, I guess, regional pride when that happened, because we were all worried about Ken's position or Ken's reputation once, if he lost the second set, especially on his home turf. Anaheim's only like 10-minute drive from his house. Like, he has to win this, and it was so close for him not winning this. Like, he cannot not win this, he has to, because he has to do it for his state. He has to do it for his family, because they tour with him everywhere. They really support him in all of his Smash travels, and also his close friends are all from the Anaheim area, Orange County. So it wasn't an option. He had just had to win. Like, I don't think anyone else realized this from watching the videos on YouTube or being an East Coaster or an outsider, but for the West Coast, it was do or die. If he didn't perform this, then it'd be like, the mentality would have switched. It'd be like, okay, PC Chris is by far easily like untouchable for the rest of the season, and Ken's not going to be able to hold a candle to that or be able to compete or match up, and then he would probably be demoralized and not even want to bother playing the rest of the circuit. Yeah, so it was an important win, and I think that shows with our reaction at the time. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it was one of those unforgettable moments, and I think it was something, not just something we won't forget at any stage in time, but something we can just always look back, like even like 10, 20, 30 years from now, when we become like pretty old or like removed from the scene. We can always go back to those kind of moments and say like, this is really where it was at. We were probably at the happiest point of our lives and even our Smash careers, for instance, by experiencing something like that. And with the whole esports thing as well, like even for this year's Apex, the reactions that people got from the crowds, like, we enjoy every single second, every single frame of what happens on the Smash screen. Like, when I watch a basketball game or a football game, I don't really enjoy anywhere near as much of the technical aspects or the appreciation of the sport and how it's played. But with Smash, I really truly feel it in every breath of my body, and I can't help but squeal or scream or jump ecstatically when anything happens. Even if a jab happens when they're both camping after 6 minutes and you just see like a 3% jab, I would erupt anyway, because I really enjoy the thinking behind everything they do, the two players, before it happens. And that was what we saw in MLG Anaheim for probably the first time at that level. And I think, the last stock, we screamed the whole time, because it didn't even matter if they were playing bad or good. The hype was just so immense, and the love for the game was so immense that we were already just too happy. It doesn't even matter what they did. We were just so happy that the game could be played like this and appreciated like this and be staged like that. Stadium seating, professional lighting, broadcast coverage, MC commentator. That was all new to us, because we came from a community where we were just running our tournaments in basements or community halls, where there was no prestige or no spotlight for us. And now there was one, and we had to we jumped on it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. And in this interview here with KDJ, he was recounting one of his lowest moments, which was MLG Vegas, where he lost. He's never won a national to this day, and that's kind of his story, his arc.
Right.
But MLG Vegas, like, to him, was like, that was the mountaintop. And what was that like for you? And maybe you can shed light a little bit too on how it was for Ken, because it was his 21st birthday, wasn't it?
It was his 21st birthday, and it was, I think, a summary of his achievements over his Smash career. He really thought that this was the tournament to basically define or just like put a capstone over what he's achieved and look back about his progress, because he wasn't really sure that he would continue with the game. And I think shortly after that, he quit the game, early 2007, because I guess MLG withdrew after that. It was a big deal for him, and I think he was proud of the fact he won the most money, but he didn't really get the key prize, the actual first place victory of the tournament. it was a very unusual tournament. It was very small. I think top 8 only bracket. So being in Vegas, it meant that only a few spectators could turn up, and all of them were from the West Coast. So the Ken Alliance turned up again, which is about 12 people, and a few of the East Coasters turned up with their support crew and stuff like that. So I think husband and wife were there. JV was there, obviously. Yeah, a few Midwesters, a few East Coasters, a few Southerners. But yeah, it was a very intimate sort of final. So it was quite surreal that we didn't really have like the ambient atmosphere of the other like circuit tournaments like Orlando or Anaheim or New York. But I think the pressure was a lot different as well. I didn't really understand how that tournament played out. I'm not sure what KDG placed. Did he place third in that tournament?
I believe he placed second. I believe Ken placed third.
Oh yeah, Ken placed third. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then PC Chris won. Ken said that even though it meant a lot to him, I do recall this. He said after he got third, he was actually quite happy with his placement because he felt like he deserved what he got. Because he felt like as he was tapering and contemplating moving on to different things or different projects and quitting the game, that there were players that were like pushing themselves further and players that just actually wanted it more than Ken did. Because Ken had a very long track record at the time, and he just felt like the mantle had been switched over to like a new generation, and this was the tournament which sort of demonstrated that and just sort of defined that. So PC Chris, Queen DJ, that was KDJ's breakout year, 2006. That was a tournament where he came out of nowhere and just like did really well. And PC Chris was, he was always around, but he took it up to a new level and he became the best player of the time as well. And Ken saw this throughout the whole year, and he knew that ultimately, even though Ken had a pretty big ego and was quite proud and quite confident of being the best player and always convinced that he could do it. When he got third and when he didn't become the best player anymore, he's like, you know what, that's okay. I can retire pretty happy because I know that I've done a lot in my time, and I was during a pretty, golden era of Smash. So even to this day, he'd still be called the king of Smash just because he dominated during that era and incorporated a lot of new techniques and tactics into the metagame at the time. So his legacy is quite strong. He did feel that like the game is evolving and moving on without him in some way, that he just sort of like had to step down. And even to this day, he'll still talk to me on Facebook these days and say like, you know what, even though I'm not the best player anymore and I never will be again, I think I contributed a lot to the time and contributed a lot to the community and development of the Smash metagame. And I think he'll always be loved and respected for that. That even if he gets stomped at a tournament he'll randomly turn up to, for instance, the Kings of Cali, I think that was a bit of a mistake. But he's happy to not have his record tarnished pretty much. So he'd rather just like remain retired and just keep that track record of his. So it was his time, his era, his achievements, and they're done now. So the new players need their time to be in the spotlight, and he accepted that. So that's what I think why he progressed the way he did in 2007. Yeah. Just eventually stopped playing, but just sort of like was observing from the background, seeing what was happening. Yeah.
I mean, there are so many other things that happened too. There was that the final thing that he did, which was the Evo 2K7, where he beat Mango, and that was like kind of Mango's rise. But maybe you can kind of give me what you think is most important about the story of Ken. From your perspective.
In that particular tournament?
Yeah, maybe that, or just, like the very most important parts of, who he was, or in that context.
Ken and Mango, or just Ken as a player in general? I'm still a bit...
Well, let's talk about the tournament first.
Okay, sure.
Evo 2K. Actually, can you move a little bit?
Yeah.
So we're straight on. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think
Do you need to hit the bathroom, Jane?
I'm fine. At the time, I think I left California when Evo 2007 happened, so I knew that Mango wasn't a reputable player. He had attended a lot of tournaments before that, but it was the first tournament he broke out of his shell pretty much. So I didn't have a lot to say in retrospectively because of that, because I wasn't familiar with the Mango or his play style for quite a long time actually. But Ken was, at the time, Ken was still probably the best player. And he beat Mango, I think, like pretty convincingly in that tournament. But at the year before that, in the bi-weeklies, I think Mango would have attended some of them as well in some of the LA tournaments. But it wasn't like a standout player. He wasn't ranked like Ken, DSF, or Hugs, for instance. He was a bit below that. So, Yeah, I didn't really give it much consideration at the time. He was just a player, but yeah, that tournament was signified the point of Mango's rise and his dominance for the next 3 years after Ken sort of took the back seat, I guess, and sort of dropped out of the scene. Yeah.
Um, uh, Maybe the more important question is, or actually, I'd love to get your perspective on, like that basement aspect of Smash. It's like that because the bi-weeklies and stuff, like the little things, the little moments. Like, what was it about Smash on the personal level that made it so special?
With the bi-weeklies in Ken's place, the most poignant or the most important thing about it, in my opinion, or my experiences, was that they saw the bi-weeklies as an opportunity to bond and figure out who would be a part of their crew or their alliance. And his sisters were very open and receptive about who could be a part of that crew. When I visited them, I gave them like a box of Vietnamese or the pastry cakes as like a welcome gift, and like thank you for having this bi-weekly. It means a lot to me because I'm from Australia and I really want to see what the American team's about. And I took it really well. They said like, you know what, this Caotic guy, he's not like the other Smashers. He really cares about what we do, and he puts a lot of thought into the small details about, like the effort we put into coordinating events and having people come into our house, 50 people into our house, in and out, it's quite chaotic and quite hectic. They're like, yeah, they said like Caotic's a really good guy, so like, make the most of it and try and get him to like, be a part of our family. And I think for the whole year I was doing the bi-weeklies with them, by the end of it, they did consider me part of their family. Jenny, Ken's sister, said to me, Caotic, even though you're Australian and we're Californian, you'll always be considered a family to us. You can always come back to us. We can always talk about, good stuff, bad stuff, bullshit, fun shit, but, you'll still be a part of our member. And I think that's what glued together a lot of what we would call, I guess, bi-weeklies, for instance. Like, it wasn't just impersonable tournament where people just go and train and win or lose and go home. It was more than that. After a bi-weekly, we'd all go out to eat at typically a Japanese restaurant, Ken's favorite, yakiniku or Korean barbecue, one of the barbecues from Asia, and then we just we'd bond in that way. But the tournament didn't really matter so much. But that was how we all sort of figured out, like, who do we really enjoy each other's company? Who can we trust? Who can we go to for support or advice for our Smash time? And they stuck up for me. I stuck up for them. When I did tournaments in San Diego, they would always come down to support me. When I was playing matches against other players in other regions, they would, I'd do the same for them in Vegas, for instance, for MLG Vegas or Orlando. I'd be the person cheering them on because no one else would cheer them on because they didn't have the best reputation. They always want them to lose because it's the underdog mentality. Go for the player who's not the best. Cheer them on, make an upset happen, So I was always going, Ken, amongst the crowd of 100 people going like, like, Mewtwo King, because they wanted him to win instead. So yeah, it meant a lot for them to sort of like, have additional family or additional support members. And I think that's what I found the most important. And the same could probably be said for every other crew out there in America. You could say the same thing for Team Ben. You could say the same thing for Team SkyPower. They all bonded. They probably also, some of them probably still live with each other. Like in Sydney and in Melbourne, like we have people who are living in Smash houses, because they bond together and they live together. It's a lot more than just playing tournaments now. It's more about, finding your ultimate bestie, for instance, or just having someone who's comfortable talking about, high-level matchups and, frame data and, not be weirded out by the other housemate. Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, for me, everything about the Smash community, and if the big meets, the small meets, it all comes down to personality. Yeah, we relate to each other from not the game actually, but from how we talk to each other and how we hang out with each other. I'm here in Boston because I'm hanging out with people I haven't seen for 8 years. There's the guy behind me, his name is Bobby from North Carolina. He now lives in Boston. He trades on the floor now, which sounds ridiculous to me. It sounds awesome. I met him for a grand total of maybe 3 or 4 hours in Melbourne, passing by, and we're really close friends now. And it's been 8 years since we've had any like one-on-one contact with each other. And it's so easy because we understand that the small details, the small intimate interactions we have in these very small meetups and small Smash Fest and tournaments make a really big impact, a really big deal on how we can communicate or how we can bond outside of that context. And I think that's what the Smash community is really all about. It's not about the Smash. Wobble said this to me a few days ago. He said, Smash Brothers is like an art form. It shouldn't really be, or it actually isn't about being the best. It isn't about winning. It isn't about learning matchups or competing in tournaments. It's about turning up at a tournament or turning up at a venue with a game you all love and care about and playing it really cool. Just making it an art form. Just perform kick-ass awesome shit. Do awesome combos, invent stuff, be creative. Yeah, and I think that's why we cheer and we rave. That's why we bond. That's why we make friendships. That's why we hang out in hotel rooms and in lobbies at 4 a.m. drinking and talking about God knows what. It's not because we play Smash Brothers. It's actually because we're just friends. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Well played.
Good play. Ah, fucking knees.
Is that good enough?
Oh, that was amazing, man. That was great.
After I was done playing Smash, I went to tournaments just to, drink and be merry with all the buddies I had.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people who turn up to Apex, a lot of them just said like, I'm not here to play Smash, I'm here to see my friends. Yeah, and that keeps it going. And it's still getting bigger. Like, Apex had the biggest tournament in history, I believe. I mean, well, that venue looked like it did.
It was pretty monster.
Yeah. It was
Dude.
over 500 people and a 13,000 stream. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Before we break set, is there anything else you wanted to talk about with relation to Ken or Smash or anything else?
I mentioned, the interesting things I mentioned was, I wanted to share the community about the what was I talked about? The trash talk mentality. So we cleared that, right? It's already covered. Did we talk about being lonely at the top and forming alliances?
A little bit. We talked about the alliance. I don't know if we talked about Ken being lonely.
Yes.
Maybe touch on that a little bit.
Okay, I don't know if it's the best word to describe his feeling or his situation, but I think when you're at the top and when you've been at the top for so long, it's hard to maintain the motivation. It's hard to perform and be, I guess, disciplined in your matchups when everyone's rooting against you. And that was something he always almost experienced outside of his own state or even his own region. So MLG Anaheim was probably one of the only examples where people would cheer on Ken when he was still playing and when he was still active because it was his home turf. If he'd export himself to another state, another region, he found it very inhospitable and he didn't really enjoy traveling at all. He actually quite ended up despising traveling to tournaments altogether. MLG would offer him stipends to travel, put him up in the hotel, and there was very little commitment to actually go to another city or another state to compete and represent himself and his state. But he didn't want to do it anymore because he always came to the conclusion that if I go, people are going to yell at me, they're going to trash talk me, I won't feel very good about being there, I'll only have like 3 people to cheer me on, my sisters and not even Smash friends, and he'll just get really demoralized by the atmosphere. And I think that really sort of triggered his it triggered his lack of goodwill for the Smash community. He doesn't respect the Smash community as much as he should have. I feel like people ostracized him, and I'm not sure if that contributed to his retirement, but whenever he looks back at Smash and he talks to me on a personal level, he always says, Caotic, the Smashing was good for me, but I don't know if I could deal with all the trash talk and all the Smashers anymore, treating me like that anymore. Yeah. And I said to him, maybe if you turn up now, they're always begging you for you to come back, they miss you, you should really just come back and represent yourself. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad anymore. It's nice to see a familiar face, sticking to his guns and doing playing the game that we all love, and we love to see him perform and do his Ken combos, But to him, he still can't see that. He still doesn't realize that we all miss him because his memories of the Smash community was tainted by all the abuse that he would have received as a high-performing professional Smasher. And it still sticks to him to this day, and it kind of disappoints me because I still love playing Smash to this day, and I'm so disappointed that if I ever visit California, he'll never attend a Smash tournament with me because he'll just say the same things. It's I don't want to go and deal with these Smashers talking shit behind my back and saying, oh, he sucks now and blah, 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 because he's he's very self-aware. So I think that hurt him quite a lot, and it was the reason why I feel he was quite lonely being at the top, and he still wishes he had, you know, a support crew. And one time he told me not too long ago that he said like he would consider joining the Smash community if all of his old friends came back and played the game to support him. And that's Arash, that's Tavo, that's like original generation LA OC crew, because they were the ones who grew up with him playing the game, and they were his support crew. So if that doesn't happen, it's hard for him to see him coming back. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good breakdown of that era.
No, I think it's absolutely true. Like, he would never admit this. But I think from my analysis, from my perspective, from what I'm seeing as a third person, it's yeah. He like, if people treated him well or gave him like common ground or like an equal opportunity in different places and became, you know, we're just good sports, then I think he'd have a more positive, you know, impression of the Smash community and would be more compelled to come back. Yeah. But he might be seeing it now. Like, he does notice that people really want him back. But it's yeah, I think the damage is probably done. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Cool.
But it's quite intense and deep stuff. So I don't know if I say this in front of camera and then Ken reviews and goes, hell no, he's totally wrong. I'm really worried about that. Yeah.
The thing is, everybody that I've talked to has their own perspective on it, and I feel like, you know, this is that actually what you said.
Yeah.
I always suspected, at least when I started to get the story from different people, and
yeah.
You know, that it seemed like where he was coming from. So I don't think it's inaccurate.
Okay. Because he's always like, I don't need smashes anymore. I'm a survivor. I don't need them anymore. I'm just gonna like play StarCraft 2. He always talks to them with like, you know, with a begrudging accent or a begrudging tone. It's like, what did they do to you? You know, like, I think that's how I can explain it. Like, yeah, he wasn't popular at the time. I mean, sure, we all loved his skills, but like, they didn't want him to win. They wanted him to lose because he's so dominant. Yeah, and that's the trash talk, the drama, it all comes with it. You know, different elements stacked on top of just, you know, the basic fundamentals of playing Smash. It was too much for him. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to be at tournaments at the end. Like, I remember I went to a tournament where it was, I can't remember which tournament was at Husband and Wife's Get Up. But basically, like, the whole tournament, me and him and Isaiah just went to, like, DC to, like, fucking explore the city and not even, like, touch Smash. The only time Ken played Smash the entire weekend was during the actual tournament. It was like a 4-day thing, and he was there for, like, just the Smash part. He didn't even want to see those kids. And it was because they were assholes. Yeah. They really were. Like, unnecessarily so. Yeah.
Does this call for another Pabst? I'm quite thirsty. We enjoy
Give the man a Pabst.
Awesome. Yeah. Sure. One more before we hit the road, because did I get enough footage?
What's that?
Did I speak enough? Is that good, or we haven't? Do we have more to talk about?
You're set. I mean, I know you're on a strict schedule of.
He's only got a day in the Americas.
I know.
But thank you so much for letting me.